Since the dawn of time, the Bible has been much more than a history book. It is a living record of extraordinary events, where the supernatural touches the human world, revealing the power, justice, and mystery of God. Within its pages are signs that defy logic, visions that surpass imagination, and miracles that still echo today as eternal testimonies. Some of these accounts are so intense that they read like scenes from a cinematic epic. Seas parting, angels descending in flames, bones coming to life, and judgments that shake heaven and earth. Now prepare yourself for a journey through 10 of the most astonishing and symbolically rich episodes in Scripture. Stories that not only astonish, but also reveal profound truths about faith, destiny, and the Creator himself. 1. The 10 Plagues of Egypt, the Clash of the Gods. Imagine an empire at its peak, Egypt. White stone palaces gleaming in the sun, pyramids rising against the sky, and a pharaoh who believed himself more than a man, a god among mortals. But in that time, a challenge would shake the foundations of this proud civilization. It was no ordinary war, nor a popular revolt. It was the Creator himself confronting the false gods of Egypt through signs and judgments the world had never witnessed. The Nile River, source of life and prosperity, turned to blood before the horrified eyes of the nation. Fish died, the water rotted, and what had once sustained life now spread death. Soon, the silence of the riverbanks was broken by a terrifying sound. Billions of frogs invading homes, temples, and even the pharaoh's throne. And when they disappeared, clouds of lice and black flies covered the land, forcing even the priests to acknowledge the finger of God is here. Yet the pharaoh's heart remained hardened. Worse plagues followed. Cattle fell dead in the fields, a priceless treasure of Egypt. Painful sores covered the bodies of men, while clouds formed in the sky, not of rain, but of fire. Hail mixed with thunder and lightning rained down, destroying entire crops. And when it seemed nothing worse could happen, a dense darkness enveloped Egypt. For 3 days there was no sun, no light, only a deadly silence. But the climax was yet to come, the 10th plague. That night, every Egyptian home was filled with weeping. The firstborn of every family died. Not even the pharaoh's palace escaped. The god who considered himself immortal was defeated before the living God. These plagues were not just punishments, but a direct confrontation between the Creator and the deities of Egypt. Each sign sent a message: there is no other God but Him. And before His voice, even the mightiest empire on earth was forced to bow. Yet that night of mourning was not the end of the journey. With pride still gripping his heart, the pharaoh rose one last time against the God of Israel, and the newly freed people soon found themselves trapped between the fury of the Egyptian army and the vast waters of the sea. When all seemed lost, heaven and earth prepared to witness one of history's greatest miracles. If you thought these plagues were astonishing, wait until you see the moment when the very ocean itself parted before a helpless people. 2. The crossing of the Red Sea. When the unimaginable opens, the sun rose over the desert, illuminating a scene of desperation. Ahead, the Red Sea stretched like an insurmountable wall. Behind, the most powerful army in the world advanced, chariots raising dust, horses' hooves echoing like thunder in the hearts of a defenseless people. Egypt had not accepted defeat. The pharaoh, hardened by his own arrogance, marched to crush those who dared defy his throne. The Israelites, newly freed, trembled. Some cried out in panic, others turned against Moses. "Is this the fate you led us to die in the desert?" The scene was chaos, but amid the clamor, the prophet lifted his staff. And then the impossible happened. The wind began to blow with fury, slicing the waters like invisible swords. The sea, which had seemed eternal and solid, split into 2 liquid colossi, forming walls of water glistening under the moon and the fire of the guiding pillar. In the middle of this improbable corridor, dry land stretched before them, a path of liberation. The people crossed step by step, hearing the roar of the waves held at bay, as if the entire ocean waited for God's command to fall. And when the Egyptian army tried to follow the same path, their fate was sealed. The waters, released by the divine gesture, crashed down with all their might, swallowing chariots, horses, and soldiers. Egypt, proud of its glory for centuries, was defeated by the breath of a single God. The people of Israel danced and sang before the victory. There was no doubt this was a God who not only judged, but also saved. But this journey had only just begun. If you found it awe-inspiring to see the sea part, wait until you witness the vision of a solitary man who, in a dream, saw a ladder reaching the heavens, with angels ascending and descending before him. 3. Jacob's ladder. The gateway. Between heaven and earth, the night was silent. A solitary man walked through the desert, fleeing from his brother who had vowed to kill him. His name was Jacob, and on this journey he carried no palaces, armies, or wealth, only the weight of his guilt and the uncertainty of tomorrow. Exhausted, he lay down on the cold ground, using a stone as a pillow. He seemed the very picture of human weakness, alone, vulnerable, without direction. But it was on that dark night that the heavens opened. While he slept, Jacob dreamed, and in his vision, a ladder appeared, anchored on the earth and reaching to the heights of heaven. It was no ordinary ladder, but a luminous portal, each rung pulsating with divine glory. And upon it, angels ascended and descended endlessly, messengers linking the human world to the throne of the Creator. At the top of the ladder, the Lord revealed himself, and the voice that spoke to Jacob was not one of condemnation, but of promise. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. I will be with you wherever you go. Jacob awoke, trembling, overwhelmed with awe. His heart pounded as if he had touched infinity. He looked around and whispered, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And full of reverence, he called that place Bethel, the house of God. There, a simple patch of ground had become a gateway between heaven and earth. This episode reveals that even in exile, even in the desert, God manifests himself. The ladder is not just a symbol, but proof that a path exists between humanity and the Creator. If Jacob's vision amazes with its beauty, wait until you witness fire descending from heaven before an entire people, consuming a prophet's sacrifice and challenging hundreds of pagan priests. 4. The fire from heaven on Mount Carmel. God who answers with flames. The scene was tense. Atop Mount Carmel, before a gathered crowd, the prophet Elijah stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal. Israel was divided, wavering between two paths: follow the living God or bow to idols that promised power but brought no life. The dispute would be settled not by words, but by fire. The challenge was simple and grand. 2 altars would be erected, 2 sacrifices prepared, but no human flame would ignite the fire. The true deity would reveal himself by sending fire from heaven. The prophets of Baal went first. From dawn they shouted, danced, and cut themselves with knives, calling on their God. The sun sank, yet nothing happened. No response, no sign, only silence. Elijah, with irony, said, "Shout louder." Perhaps he is asleep or traveling. When it was his turn, the prophet rebuilt the Lord's altar with 12 stones, representing the tribes of Israel. Upon the wood, he placed the sacrifice, and to remove any doubt, he commanded buckets and more buckets of water to be poured over the altar until it was soaked. A small river ran around it, impossible to burn. Then Elijah lifted his voice in prayer, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, answer me, so that this people may know that you are the true God." In that instant, the heavens opened. Fire fell violently, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water. The entire mountain blazed with divine flames, and the people fell to their knees, crying out in unison, "The Lord is God! The Lord is God!" This episode was not merely a victory of Elijah over false prophets. It was living proof that the God of Israel is not distant but responds with power. And if fire descending from heaven already seems impossible, wait until you witness dry bones moving, coming together, and receiving life again before the eyes of a prophet. 5. The vision of the valley of dry bones. When life returns from nothing. The prophet Ezekiel was carried by the Spirit to a desolate place. It was neither a ruined city nor a recent battlefield. It was something even darker, an entire valley covered with dry bones. The ground was littered with human remains scattered under the scorching sun. No flesh, no blood, no sign of life. Only ancient bones, dried by time, silent witnesses of a forgotten defeat. And it was in this macabre scene that God asked the prophet, "Son of man, can these bones live again?" The question hung in the air like the silence of the valley. Ezekiel, aware of his limitations before such a profound mystery, replied, "Lord, you know." Then came the command, "Prophesy to these bones and say to them, 'Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord.'" Ezekiel obeyed. The moment his words echoed across the valley, a sound began to arise. It was like the snapping of thousands of branches breaking at once. The bones began to move, sliding across the ground, joining into complete skeletons. Before the prophet's eyes, tendons formed, flesh grew, skin covered them, but something was still missing, the breath of life. God then commanded, "Prophesy to the Spirit. Say, 'Come from the four winds, O Spirit, and breathe upon these dead, that they may live.'" At his command, the wind blew with force. The silence of death gave way to the sound of breathing. Suddenly, thousands of men rose, a vast living army where once there had been only dust. This vision was not just a supernatural spectacle. It was a powerful symbol. Israel, exiled and lost, would rise again from the ashes. And beyond that, it showed all generations that for God, nothing is impossible. Not even death holds the final word. But if dry bones can rise, imagine the impact of 4 horsemen appearing on the horizon, bringing war, famine, and destruction across the earth. 6. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, harbingers of the end. The Apostle John was exiled on the island of Patmos when he received a vision beyond the limits of imagination. The sky opened before his eyes, and in his hands appeared a book sealed with 7 seals. No one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth was worthy to open it. No one, except the Lamb. When the Lamb who had been slain began to break the seals, the entire universe trembled, and as the first seal was opened, the first sign of the end appeared. From the horizon, riding a white horse, came the first horseman. He carried a bow and was given a crown. He was the image of conquest, expansion, of power that rises and subjugates the masses, a kingdom that seemed glorious, but whose triumph concealed the foreshadowing of ruin. The second seal was opened, and a blood-red horse appeared. Its rider was given a great sword and the authority to take peace from the earth. Wherever he passed, brothers rose against brothers, nations against nations. The sound of swords and the cries of war echoed like endless thunder. Upon opening the third seal, a black horse emerged. In its rider's hand was a pair of scales, and a voice proclaimed, "A liter of wheat for a denarius, 3 liters of barley for the same price." It was famine, measuring food like gold, revealing a broken world where scarcity became a sentence of death. Then the fourth seal was broken, and the most terrifying of the horsemen appeared. A pale horse, greenish in color, ridden by death itself. Hell followed closely behind, and together they had the power to devastate a fourth of the earth with sword, famine, pestilence, and wild beasts. These 4 horsemen are not merely symbolic figures. They represent forces that span centuries: conquest, war, scarcity, and death. Eternal shadows reminding humanity of its fragility before divine judgment. And if the vision of the horseman already inspires fear, prepare to witness a tower built by men to reach the heavens, and how a single gesture from God brought it crashing down, confusing tongues and scattering people across the earth. 7. The Tower of Babel, ambition that reached the heavens. The wind blew across the fertile fields of Mesopotamia, carrying the sound of hands hammering stones, the echo of chisels, and the cries of men daring to defy the limits of the sky. There, a city was rising, standing as a monument to human ambition, Babel. Each brick laid was a silent promise, each stone a challenge to the heavens themselves. The people spoke a single language, and their voices rose in unison. They wanted to be remembered, to touch the divine, to build a place that would challenge the Creator himself. The towers grew taller and taller, casting shadows over neighboring villages, dominating the landscape as if they could replace the gods with their own effort. But God's gaze was upon them. He saw their arrogance, the audacity of a people who confused creativity with pride, and slowly his hand moved over the earth. Confusion. A whisper that grew into shouts, and suddenly what had been one language became many. Words lost their meaning. Instructions turned to mystery. Chaos overtook the city. Stones fell, towers trembled. The unity that built Babel now destroyed it. Men who walked side by side yesterday could no longer understand each other. The dream of touching the heavens shattered into fragments of clay and dust. Human pride, so grand, fell before the silent, absolute power of the Creator. And so, Babel was divided. Each group of survivors scattered across the world, carrying languages, stories, and the reminder that no man, however clever, could equal divinity. Among ruins and echoes of confused cries, a silent truth spread. Ambition can build empires, but only God sets the limits of heaven and earth. If man cannot reach the heavens with his pride, who can uncover the mysteries sealed in the scrolls? 8. The scroll sealed with 7 seals, mysteries of the apocalypse. In the silence of heaven, a scroll lay sealed with 7 seals that no one could break. Its presence was imposing, radiating light and mystery at once. Each seal held ancient secrets, the destinies of nations, judgments and promises that only the worthy Lamb could reveal. Angels surrounded the throne, their wings shining like molten gold, while the heavenly hosts watched in reverence and awe. The anticipation was palpable. The moment the seals would be opened would change the course of history forever. Then he appeared. The Lamb, a symbol of purity and sacrifice, approached the scroll. Absolute silence spread across the cosmos. When the first seal opened, its sound echoed like thunder, and visions of horsemen, war, and famine swept across the earth. Each seal revealed events previously unseen by human eyes, yet written since the foundation of the world. The celestial beings watched in awe. Each seal broken was an act of justice, of mercy, and the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. But it was more than a warning. It was a call to faith, proof that the Creator's power stretches beyond time, above the stars, and even over the hardest of hearts. As the 7th seal prepared to be broken, a profound silence covered all. Not even the wind dared to move. A suspense that seemed to pierce the very fabric of creation hung in the air. The final judgment was about to be revealed, and no one could hide from the gaze of the Lamb. If you thought the seals held only secrets, wait until you witness the courage of a man defying death, protected by divine power, on a night that would seal his destiny and show that no danger is greater than faith. 9. Daniel in the lion's den, faith amid danger night, fell over Babylon like a heavy cloak, silent yet thick with tension. Daniel, a man of unwavering faith, walked among shadows that seemed to come alive. Falsely accused and condemned, he was thrown into the lion's den, a dark abyss where danger breathed and eyes glimmered in the gloom. The scent of wet earth mingled with the stench of the beasts, and the silence was broken only by low, threatening roars. Every muscle of Daniel remained firm, not out of fear of death, but because of the conviction that the Creator would never abandon him. He knelt, his heart beating in rhythm with God's promise, his breath blending with the echoes of the den. The night seemed endless, The lions approached, yet their jaws, so sharp and deadly, remained shut. A silent miracle unfolded before the impossible. No attack, no movement to harm the one who trusted completely. Divine intervention, visible only to eyes of faith. When the morning light entered the den, King Darius ran to the abyss, fearing the worst. But Daniel was unharmed, serene, protected by power that transcends death and defies every law of nature. The mouths of the lions remained closed, and God's justice revealed itself clearly and powerfully. Daniel's courage showed that true strength is not in men, in violence, or in fear, but in absolute trust in the Creator. The world witnessed that faith, when unwavering, is stronger than any danger, more powerful than any adversary. And as the den emptied and Daniel's freedom became reality, a greater mystery approached. The destiny of humanity would not end here, but continue to a final judgment where fire and glory would meet, revealing the future of all who dare to believe. 10. The Lake of Fire and the New Jerusalem, Judgment and Eternal Glory. The heavens opened like an ancient scroll, revealing visions no man could ever forget. Flames and darkness danced on the horizon, a lake of fire consuming everything opposing God's holiness. Every roar, every spark echoed the final judgment, announcing that nothing impure could remain before the Creator. The sound of trumpets rang across the earth, awakening the dead and summoning all to judgment. But for those whose faith was steadfast, there was no fear, only the certainty that God's justice, though terrifying, brings order to chaos. Then, at the pinnacle of this divine spectacle, the New Jerusalem appeared. A radiant city, suspended between heaven and earth, streets of gold, gates of pearl, and a light that needed no sun. There, pain, tears, and death had no place. It was eternal glory, the reward of those who remained faithful, even when all seemed lost. And as the lake of fire consumed evil and God's city shone through eternity, one truth became clear. Every plague, every parted sea, every miracle, and every test of faith was part of a greater plan. A plan that spans time, shapes destiny, and shows that nothing is impossible for the one who sustains the universe. Today, this story comes to an end, but its message echoes. From the Nile to human towers, from celestial visions to the lion's den, God's hand guides, protects, and transforms every life that seeks Him. And even though the final chapter has closed, the memory of this power, this glory, and this justice remains. For when the impossible meets faith, there is only one certainty: God always fulfills His promises. See you soon.